This time, the senators urging Donald Trump to support older retirement age for pilots. What's behind this? Well, international rules prohibit commercial airline pilots older than 65 from flying international flights. The U.S. applies the same rule domestically. Ted Cruz, though, is now urging Donald Trump to support efforts by an airline trade group to raise the mandatory pilot retirement age to 67, despite opposition from a pilots association. The group cites possible travel risks. Give you more on this one. There's Senator Cruz. In a letter first reported by Reuters on Sunday, Cruz asked Trump to support efforts, the upcoming opening of a United Nations aviation meeting in Montreal. America should lead on the international stage in support of raising or even abolishing the pilot retirement age, said Cruz, who leads the Senate panel overseeing aviation issues. He added current policy is forcing thousands of highly qualified and experienced pilots into early retirement every year. 2024, Congress rejected a push to raise the mandatory airline pilot retirement age to 67 from 65. Lawmakers rejected the bid to hike the retirement age after some cited a statement from the FAA, which had called for a scientific and safety analysis before making a decision. International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO, will consider an airline trade group's proposal to raise pilots' retirement age globally to 67 when delegates gather for its triennial assembly. That starts on Tuesday. Now, the president of the Airline Pilots Association, Jason Ambrosi, said the group opposes changes to pilot retirement age and has cited studies that have found greater health risks and a decline in cognitive skills with an increase in age. The United States is the global leader in aviation safety, and we should resist any attempt to arbitrarily make changes to the regulatory framework that has helped us achieve this record. That's why Congress rejected making a change to the pilot retirement age just last year, the group said in a statement. Why could they be pushing for this now? Aviation experts are warning that the U.S. airline industry is going to be hit by a tsunami of pilot retirements. Wednesday, the CEO of the Regional Airline Association, Faye Malarkey Black, told the U.S. Transportation and Infrastructure Committee that over the next 15 years, nearly 50% of the commercial airline workforce will be forced to retire because they will reach the age of 65. There are 70% more pilots between the ages of 43 and 64 than those between 21 and 42, Black said, reflective of the high cost of flight education and training. The under 30 years of age cohort of pilots is the smallest at about 8% of total pilots, she added. As a result, 2,225 pilots must retire this year, and required retirements will peak in 2029 at 3,750 when pilots who are now 58 will turn 65. So look, this is a huge problem, right? More and more Americans, business, they're flying. And you want that sweet spot, right? These pilots who have a certain number of hours, but are young enough. Perhaps an argument could be made, yes, that why go with a blanket number or go with this threshold, right? Here's your limit. But perhaps when you get to this age, you have to be tested every year because so many lives are at stake. But never mind that. To me, the biggest issue here is we're always trying to put a Band-Aid on something. We talk about the cost of becoming a pilot, and this is why I can tie economic disparity and racism to everything. It's caused all our problems. You got traffic on the highway, and you're wondering, when they decided to build this Georgia highway, why didn't they make it, well, you could blame white flight and people saying, I don't want these people in my neighborhood, and I don't want them to be able to take the MARTA public transportation and come out here and rob me. Everything seems to roll into one. And maybe you're saying, well, that's taking it too far, but I don't think it is. They need to solve this problem by recruiting, paying, enabling people to pursue their dreams in aviation so that the rest of us can can fly safely. What say
Mhm.
you?
Well, first of all, Sharon, be careful because I heard that intersectionality is woke and people don't like that. So also I was laughing
You're
at
right. My bad.
your very visceral reaction to Ted Cruz, but he is my senator. So whatever you're feeling, I feel it so much more. And then also there's
No.
like shame
Oh
associated
my
with that, but
goodness.
also I didn't vote
Yes.
for him. So I can take solace there. But great. This is just what we need. We just need older and more disgruntled airline pilots. But it's like it's as you said, right? This is what we mean when we talk about band-aid solutions. And this is also sort of what I was alluding to in an earlier story when I was saying that, they just look at something and they just burn it all down instead of actually trying to find a solution like the one that you suggested. Obviously they would have to look into the feasibility of things like that, but like it's like they didn't even try. Have you even tried anything besides just like forcing people to stay in a job longer than they were planning to do so? And this is especially, these are older people who would be affected by this, people who I'm sure already have retirement plans. And so again, like we were talking in an earlier story, this is infringing on people's right to just like, or ability even to just plan their own lives and just to make plans for themselves and for their families and to go forward and execute those plans. And I understand that plans don't always work out the way we wanted them to, but you would hope that at least the institutions that govern our lives would help to facilitate some kind of autonomy over our own lives, right? We're an individualistic nation after all, aren't we? We should want people to be able to choose to live their lives the way they want to. But also, like, do we need to push the retirement age up, or do we need to talk about why we don't have a bench ready to take over whenever that turnover inevitably occurs? It's not like we didn't see this problem coming years ago when we said, "Oh, look, all of these pilots are this same age, and at some point, this is going to be a problem." I think you did mention it also. Let's look into building some kind of infrastructure that helps people to pursue maybe their dreams of becoming an airline pilot and to help make that more of a cost effective path for people to pursue. A lot of people, Americans especially, do not pursue higher education because it is so expensive, it is exclusionary, and then at the end of it you might not get paid as much as you were promised, or you're not going to get paid as much as even your education costs to get you there. So like it's not feasible for a lot of people. Those are the systems that we actually need to be investigating, but of course those are much bigger problems to solve, and they will take a lot longer to solve. And they're not as like, sound bitey whenever you're trying to make a case on the floor of Congress or on Fox News or on X or wherever. So we don't get a lot of those long-term, deep-rooted solutions proposed because they are boring, and because they often come with like 100-page documents as to how the plan is going to be implemented, and they're going to cost money, and we're not going to see the results of those investments for years to come, maybe not even for generations to come. And so those politically are a lot harder to sell whenever you're working in 2 or 4 year cycles. So something like this is just an easy thing that Ted Cruz gets to say that he did for the American people, I guess. Like as I said, we're talking about flying airplanes here. We want people to be in tip-top shape. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you can't be older and be in tip-top shape, but as he suggested, maybe we could just like test them
Yeah.
regularly, the same way
Something.
we test elderly people who have driver's licenses, things
Yeah.
like that. Like there
And
are a lot of common sense solutions that I feel like they just like did not pursue.
no, they didn't. And by the way, it's not helping by saying that if I have a black pilot, I'm going to get off the plane, as some have
As
suggested.
some have suggested.
We,
Absolutely.
we don't need to, yeah,
Mhm.
we're on the same wavelength.
You said it. I thought
Yeah.
it, but you said it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. And there's people at home thinking it
We
too,
were all thinking
because,
it. Yeah.
yeah, but we want our pilots to be safe, prepared, ready, make a decent wage,
Yeah.
ready
Yeah.
to carry Ted Cruz to a vacation spot when Texas is in crisis and
Mhm.
needs their senators stay
There
behind.
could
Maybe it's
even
better if
be
he
like a
leaves.
way to funnel
Yeah.
like our military pilots whenever they're done with the military, put them into the aviation retail space, like the commercial space, not retail, like things
Yeah.
like that. Like there are pipelines that can be
Stop. You're trying to
utilized,
make
I
too much
imagine.
sense. I want you
Yeah.
to stop. Okay. We're going to keep doing things the way we've been doing them, and just on the back and throw a Band-Aid on it. That's how we're going to
Yeah.
do things here.
Head Cruz.
That's right. Your senator.